Welcome everyone to part 2 of my eBay rescue and restore of a motorized Zoids Dibison. This video mainly covers the disassembly and prepping of the parts to be washed, as one of my rules of thumb is to clean all of my eBay purchases before handling them extensively. So without further ado, let's get into the disassembly and the removal of the stickers of this model kit. So here we have the Dibison from part 1 of this video series that we'll be working with, and it can definitely use a good clean as a start. The model itself is fairly dusty, so a bubble bath will clean it right up. I will be using some standard dish soap and warm water to get all of the dust off and help really clean up this model. Here we have the pilot figure, standard issue on these types of kits, and fairly detailed. I originally had a lot more footage in this video of removing the stickers. Luckily, the stickers come off fairly easily, but a few of them were pretty stubborn, leading to this video to be rather long. And here we have the broken tailpiece, which I will be repairing in the next video with a pin vise and a bit of paperclip and some glue. It should be a fairly simple repair, and I would be more than happy to show the actual repair on camera. So from my experience, it's definitely a little bit of a roll of the dice buying Zoids kits pre-owned, especially off websites like eBay. Something to watch out for is the condition of the caps that hold the model together. In this case, the caps were still fresh and pretty elastic. Older Zoids from the 80s and 90s tend to have their caps get brittle over time and shatter, compared to models that were released from the 2000s or later. The hooves on this Dibison are made of plastic, which are definitely lacking in the impact department of the metal die-cast hooves of the Japanese release versions. However, they're a good indicator of what release of the Dibison you have. The Hasbro versions and American releases tend to have plastic hooves and horns, while earlier Japanese releases have metal hooves and horns. The walking mechanism on this Zoid is pretty straightforward. The head moves up and down when the Dibison walks forward, and the feet walk the Zoid in a forward motion, which makes both assembly and disassembly quite easily, which is nice compared to some other Zoids such as Ligers that have pretty complex walking mechanisms that can make disassembly and repair tricky without the instructions. There is an absolute treasure trove of hidden details all over this model that would make it really cool to repaint or to add a ink wash to. One of my favorite parts about this Zoid is that it's absolutely covered in weapon systems. The numerous guns on the back of this Zoid is absolutely one of the coolest ideas for a mech that I've ever seen. They're all movable too, so you can have them facing in different directions. Here we have removing more of the detail parts and the parts that hold the body together, and we have the second pilot who operates equipment in a compartment on the Zoid's back. I always love when Zoids models have little action features or equipment that can be positioned, like this little radar dish. Next, we have the splitting of the body halves after removing a few more of the weapons, as well as the reveal of the motor. It turns out that this motor is actually defective, so I'll be replacing it in the next video with one that's in a bit better condition. Despite my efforts, the motor remained non-functional, so I was able to trade for a better one. Here we have a closer view of the two body halves as the last few parts to the model that need to be prepped before it's cleaned. I'm going to use a sander to remove some of these nub and mold marks that are present when a model is snapped off the sprue. The sanding will certainly help to clean this model up and make it a bit more presentable. Some of these stickers are actually really stubborn. A heat gun or a hairdryer would have made my life so much easier. Next time I will certainly see about using one to remove the stickers rather than relying on my fingernails. We also have the head of the Dibison as well, which was pressed pretty tightly together, which took a little bit of force to get open. We also actually have the two caps for the horns that were hidden inside the head this entire time. These will come in handy once we are ready to put the horns back into their proper positions. And here we have another look at the motor. Pretty basic for a medium-sized battery-operated Zoid, which pretty much just operates the legs moving forward as well as moving the head up and down. It's got some dried superglue on it, which we've only really discovered through disassembly. Another case of definitely wanting to clean your models before you put them up onto your shelves or with the rest of your collection, as you can never really know what's underneath all of these pieces until you take it apart. Between part 1 and part 2 of this video, I've been able to acquire the extra parts that will help us complete this build. These include the following: the anti-Zoids 3-barrel shotgun, which is positioned under the Zoid's head to provide a bit more firepower. Next, we have the pair of 35mm anti-air guns that rest on the Zoid's back to provide cover against aerial threats. And finally, we have the pair of the Dibison signature twin crusher horns, which are mounted on the Zoid's head. And I'm certainly glad to have them, as finding the horns by themselves can be rather tricky. I do also have a second 8-shot missile pod for the cheek of this Zoid as well that I didn't actually get on camera. And with that, the disassembly of this Dibison is complete. The next video will cover a motor test, as well as the cleaning of the non-motorized parts with warm and soapy water, using a sanding stick to remove the nub marks from the pieces, as well as repairing the Dibison's tail using a pin vise and a bit of paper clip and plastic glue to reinforce the tail to keep it from breaking again. Once all the repairs and sanding is complete, I'll give it another clean, reassemble, and we'll do a test run. Thank you very much for sticking with me for this series. I've learned a lot, and hopefully part 3 will be posted a lot sooner than part 2.